Welcome to the REI Foundation Podcast, where we cover all the steps and strategies to make your real estate dreams a reality. Now your hosts, Jason and Pili.
Hey everyone, looking for lending for your next project? Well, we want to introduce you to Fund That Flip.
So what is Fund That Flip? Well, Fund That Flip is fast, affordable funding for your next real estate transaction. And trust me, we know. We've used them and are using them currently for deals that we're working on flipping homes. So if you want white glove service, check out Fund That Flip for great terms, reliable service, just everything you're looking for from a funding partner. Pili, where can we find them?
You can find them at fundthatflip.com/REI Foundation. Again, that's fundthatflip.com/REI Foundation.
What are you waiting for?
Hi, everybody, and welcome again to the Real Estate Investing Foundation Podcast. Today, we have the awesome Scott Bauer. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here today, guys.
Well, a little bit about Scott, Mr. Scott Bauer, as we have on his HBSB Holdings page. Founded HBSB Holdings in 2014. Scott is originally a transplant from the state of Iowa, and he studied at the University of Iowa. And 2 weeks after graduation, moved to Arizona, where he worked in the corporate world for a short year before beginning his entrepreneurial journey into real estate. Started off in residential retail sales with Keller Williams Realty, and Scott closed over $2.2 million in volume in his first 12 months. Wow. But he realized quickly that being a realtor wasn't for him. And since then has moved on to the investment space, flipping over 120 transactions in the past 30 months with over 15 million in volumes closed. And now with many years experience in the real estate industry, Scott has provided hundreds of Phoenix property owners with property solutions. And the number one goal of HBSB Holdings is to provide quality solutions to property sellers who feel they may not have one. Well, nice. Pretty amazing. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So pretty big jump right there, just taking off after Iowa. And the quick thing is we'd always love to know how you got started, but why did you just make the jump to Phoenix?
Yeah, it's kind of a long story, but certainly feeds to my story. So I was an entrepreneur from a young age. I started my first company when I was just a junior in high school. It was a car detailing company. My mom worked for John Deere Financial, and she was pretty high up there, which in Iowa, John Deere tractor company, the financial sector is pretty big. And so I leveraged her network basically to build my company. It was pretty sweet. I would go pick up their car in the morning, I would detail it and have it back to work for them to drive it home that night. And so they really, really enjoyed that. And, being in high school doing this when I was making a few $1,000s a week, I was loaded, right? I mean, it was awesome. So I actually met my first mentor through doing that. And he was one of the owners in Jacobson Logistics, which was at the time the third largest third-party logistics company in the country, meaning that they did end-to-end supply chain management, everything from manufacturing a product to shipping that product and then storing it somewhere. And so when I was in college, I interned with that company during the summertime and learned everything about it, basically all 4 years of college. During the summertime, I interned with Jacobson companies. And after I graduated, it was basically, where in the country do you want to go? Do you want to go? At the time, they were large. They had locations pretty much everywhere. And I went to pretty much had Atlanta, Georgia. I could go to here in Phoenix, and I could go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So obviously of the three, Phoenix just stood out. I'm a car and motorcycle junkie, and you can do that 300 days a year here. So that's how I got to Phoenix.
That's
nice.
Awesome. Good.
Nice.
I was wondering you didn't pick Harrisburg, PA. So, but I kind of get it. So
yeah.
That's great. Well, looking at everything you do today, what do you typically tell people when they say, hey, Scott, what do you do?
So, I own HBSB Holdings, which is a real estate investment company. And kind of like you said in the bio, we provide solutions to people that feel like they don't have one. And we also give opportunities to other investors to invest alongside us in the market and take part in the real estate industry. So, depending on who's asking the question, it can be as easy as, I buy and sell real estate, to go into my pitch. This is what we do exactly. I'm pretty much 95% of what I do now is on the wholesale basis. It really is a win-win scenario for everybody involved. And I've come to find that it really mitigates the risk for me. It provides a solution for home sellers that need to get out of a property quickly or don't want to go through the hassle or the process of listing with a realtor for whatever reason. There's so many different types, and also gives the investors looking for off-market deals an outlet to find those properties, because their strengths are not finding the properties themselves. Their strengths are going in and making them look good. Right.
So did you, talking about mitigating risk, is all the flipping you've been doing, the 120 plus transactions in the last 3 years, have you stopped that just based on market conditions, or what's your thought process there?
Well, as far as, so all of those different properties, we've actually done closer to 150 at this point, closer to 20 million, which is great. But from a risk mitigation standpoint, when you're wholesaling properties, you don't have a whole lot of risk. If I'm flipping the properties and going in and fixing them up myself to turn around and resell, I have a lot of risk involved, because not only do I take the property down, have the ownership in it, I also have to pay for my money. We run into issues happening with the remodel of the property to begin with. Everybody out there knows that there are bound to be issues that come up on flipping properties.
Always. And
ultimately, you're at the mercy of what the market's going to do as far as, when you go to resell it, what's going to happen? Are we going to be in the same market that we're in now? Are things going to change? Are interest rates going to jump up now and it's going to force home prices down? All these things are just more variables that you have to consider compared to on the wholesale basis, where I don't have nearly all that to think about.
That's awesome.
So you didn't just become Scott Bauer entrepreneur, except you kind of did because you're in high school. But we are huge on mentorship here. So you mentioned one mentor. Can you name a few others, or how did mentorship help you get to where you are today?
Oh yes, I'm a product of mentorship and coaching. I have several of them now today, and mastermind groups as well. I think that is one thing that separates people from people at the top, surrounding yourself. Napoleon Hill actually talks about it in Think and Grow Rich, where if you really want to expand what you know, you surround yourself with the people that know more than you do. Right. And that's why I'm here. I'm a product of coaching. So first and foremost, the very first coach I ever had was Dave Lindahl. I know you know who that is, because he's a multifamily mogul. And when I first got into the investment space, after I was a realtor, I joined the local REI here and learned that there are other ways to make money. And Dave basically came and got up on stage and told his story, and I resonated a lot with it because that's had a lot of things to do with my story. So he made a good point. He was like, if you have a single family house and your renter moves out, you have no income. But if you have a 100-unit apartment complex and 10 people move out, you're probably going to be okay. So it was like, boom, that makes so much sense. Let's do it right then. So I borrowed $11,000 from my mom that I didn't have and signed up for his coaching and basically started going through his process. And through that, he had another event probably 90 days after I started the coaching program here in Phoenix. And one of the guys that had gone through his program lives here in Phoenix and had bought 350 units, syndicated 350 units in Atlanta, Georgia, South Carolina, and Tucson, Arizona. And got up on stage, told his story, said, how he went through Dave's program and learned how to buy apartments with other investors and share in the profits. And so I was like, I got to meet this guy. So called Lindahl's office, got his phone number, and blew him up for a month, pretty much before he would take my call. And he finally was like, all right, what do you want? You won't leave me alone. What do you want?
Yep.
So went and had coffee with him. Him and I hit it off real well. And he said, apartments are great. I have this other idea with single family houses. Would you want to maybe help me do this? And it was basically wholesaling houses. He knew somebody in Utah that was crushing it up there, wholesaling houses. And so he was like, we're in Phoenix, it's a bigger market. It only makes sense if we just come down here and do the same thing. So both of us were very green at really what this was going to entail at the time. But I went up to Salt Lake City and job shadowed these guys for 4 days, watched their operation, watched how they were doing it, and then came back down to Phoenix, and we just did exactly what they were doing. Sent out mail, got people to give us a call and find motivated sellers, locked up the properties, and then turned around and sold them to other investors. And it was like, this is fantastic.
What you just said right there, you went, you watched, and then you did exactly what those successful people are doing. Too many times, new investors will make the mistake of trying to create something new, or, I don't know, change.
Reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, reinvent the wheel. Thank you. But really, all you have to do is find that successful person, take what they're doing, and copy it.
Yeah, there was another point in there. So when you first had that meeting with that individual, what was it that you brought to the table that made them say that they want to partner with you? Because a lot of people have these meetings, right? And you go into a meeting and maybe you're just asking, but what were you giving back there? What's a good
what was your
note
value
that
add?
you can give to others just when they are trying to get that meeting with a possible mentor?
So, you make up a big point. If you ever want anything, you have to start by giving, right? Because if you just go take always, you're not going to get what you want. You're not going to go where you need to go. So my proposition to him was like, basically, listen, I'm hungry. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Just let me utilize your experience. I'm a hustler. I'm ready to go. So what do you need? Let me do it. And so that's what happened. And ultimately why him and I ended up separating from each other is because, I did everything. He basically paid for the mailers to go out, and I did everything else after that. So I took all of the phone calls. I comped all the properties, looked at all the properties, went on all the appointments, ultimately got all of the contracts for the deals, and then ultimately found all the buyers, because he had a few buyers that he'd known because he'd fixed and flipped several properties, but he didn't really have a buyer's list. And so I scoured Craigslist. I went to the REIA meetings. I found people that we could sell properties to. And after about 6 months, I was realizing that I was doing all the work and I was getting shafted on the money. So that was, good learning experience for me and for him, I think, as well, that I need to go do this on my own. And so it was July of 2015 when him and I separated from each other, and that was the start of HBSB Holdings and really the start of the explosion.
That's great. So fast forwarding, how has your business evolved, and what does your business look like today?
So the business continues to evolve constantly. From a deal standpoint, I've doubled the revenue that we've done year after year for the last 4 years, which is really exciting. And it looks like it's going to be that way again this year, which is even more exciting.
Yeah.
And, I've been a one-man show. Really, I've utilized technology to get to where I'm at now. And now I'm at a place where I need to start using people. So I have a full-time assistant now that does so much for me, and that's taken so much off the plate, as well as another sales guy that's just going with me to lock up more deals and ultimately sell more deals.
So how are you using technology to at least get yourself going? What are some hacks?
One of my good friends, his name is Dan Schwartz, and he started a company called InvestorFuse. Are you familiar with InvestorFuse?
Yes,
we use it. Yep.
Okay. All right. So I was the very first person to use that system. Dan and I were actually part of Collective Genius, another mastermind group that's where I met Dan originally. And he was working with Joe McCall on doing another CRM, basically, that was called Real Automation Biz, which was a system based on Podio that had several third-party connections to it that made everything automate. Well, the problem with that was that you had all these third-party sites. So if something was to go wrong with one of them, you'd have to kind of not only be on the phone with the support group for that specific company, but figure out why it's going wrong with Podio, why maybe this going wrong with this third-party system is affecting the other third-party system, and it was just a mess.
Sounds daunting. Just on any part of it sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was not good. So I wasn't on the development side, but I was just using it, and this is one of the major problems. So he said, you know what? I'm going to go do this on my own. I'm going to go bring this in-house. I'm going to make everything one platform, and it's going to be awesome. So he said, do you want to help me build it and test it and see if it's going to work? And so I signed up for that, and we went to work. We basically took I just let my system run and let all of my stuff happen. And as problems came up, we went to the developers and said, this doesn't work or this does work. And, we made it what it is today. And so it's been a really cool ride to see that and to watch the growth for him. And ultimately that system has allowed me to build to $500,000 in revenue by myself in, using technology with that service.
Nice. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future, because you basically said you were a one-man show until fairly recently. So how are you growing your business, and what does your business look like in about 5 years?
Well, and even let's take that one step further. You're doing this all yourself, and a lot of people have a hard time letting it go. What was the trigger? You said, okay, let's get some other people to help out here.
There we go.
Oh, it's that is the big thing that's a problem for any entrepreneur. You don't want to let go of control. It's very hard to say, to let go of what you're good at or what you've built, period. Doesn't matter. I struggle with that still today. And the ultimate thing is, listen, I don't want to do this. I work very, very hard, but I can't do that forever. And I've done it for long enough, and we've done enough transactions, and it's been repetitive enough that I know I can teach somebody else how to do it. And if I can just replicate 85% of myself on other people, then, not only can I make them successful, but ultimately it's going to help me build as well. So, the assistant is super important. You have to have somebody out there that is going to assist with what you're doing. I try to keep the notion like focus on what you're good at and outsource the rest. So that's basically what I've done. I mean, when I say I'm a one-man show, it's not 100% true, because there's other people that are involved. For instance, all of my marketing is outsourced. So to an extent, I basically provide lists that I pull every month, and then the mail house takes it over from there. And it's just a private guy here in Phoenix. But him and I have worked together for the last 4 years and have built up to where we send 20,000 mail pieces a month. And it's it's pretty easy. We have it down. And then all the dispositions of my properties last year basically went through one guy. So him and I, he had a massive distribution list. He's a big investor here in Phoenix, one of the largest, if not the largest. And him and I basically just worked together. So I would focus on the acquisition of the asset, and then he would worry about dispositions. And it worked out very well because, one, as soon as I got a property in and got the contract back, I knew that it was time to go find another one. I didn't have to worry about going to find a buyer and dealing with scheduling with appointments and doing all of that stuff. He would handle that. So although he didn't work for me directly, that was a partnership, so to speak, that I wouldn't have been able to achieve what I did without that.
Got it. That's
Nice.
great.
I like that relationship.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that's a good point, is that you were leveraging a lot of other people, because it can be a very big, difficult step for you to basically figure out what you need. But if you start realizing just focusing on what you're best at and what you like doing, that can be a really awesome scalable tactic. So kudos, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. And the same thing goes with, title company. That's super important as well. And making sure that you have a good title agent and good title company that you can rely on. That's somebody that knows what you're doing, what your company is about, and what you're trying to accomplish is really important. And I've thankfully found that here in Phoenix. Same thing goes with an attorney, and making sure that you have all the key pieces in place, making sure you have those relationships. Even though it's a one-man show, it's not a one-man show. I mean, that's just not what it is. So
what's some important questions you would ask a lawyer or title person? I don't think we focused on that at all.
So making sure that they understand what it is that you're doing. So running basically a wholesale business, that means that we're not necessarily closing on every property. Are they good with double escrowing? Are they good with assignments? Are they good with making sure that they understand how the wholesale process works? What are their rates, and what do they give for investors that are doing high volume? Because for a title company, if you're running, 5 to 10 properties through them a month, you should get a break, period. Right. And just making sure that they understand and everybody understands what you're doing and what they can do to help you. That's important.
Nice.
Awesome.
So it sounds to me like you're trying to scale up. What are you trying to scale up to? What's the future look like?
So this year we're doubling business again. So $1 million in revenue, which we're already a third of the way there. So we're ahead,
Nice.
Which is good. But, adding people. So adding or another acquisitions guy, which I've already brought on board. He's very new. So it hasn't even been 90 days yet. So I'm going to really work with him to make sure that he understands how to do this business. And ultimately, like I said, how can I empower him to basically replicate what I'm doing at least 85% so that, I can make him money, and ultimately it's going to make me money. Right. And just bringing people on board as I feel fit. I don't want to put too many people in place too quickly. I think that's how a lot of people fail. You get too big of a ship and you can't handle it. I try to stay as lean as I can and, utilize the strengths for both me and Matt, which is the new guy, as well as my assistant, as much as we can, and just see where it goes.
That's great. What's your favorite deal you've done to date?
So the only reason it's my favorite deal is because it opened my eyes to what this business is. So I think it was like the second month it was January is when I contracted the deal, or it was right after Christmas or during the Christmas month or week. I'm sorry, because nobody was really working. And I got this random phone call and this lady was like, "Hey, we need to sell this property. So, can you come over here today?" It was like the 23rd or 24th. Right. And I just happened to be in Phoenix. So I was like, yeah, I'm there, and I went over there and contracted the property and sold it for $42,000. And at the time, my first salary I ever had the first year that I worked was $38,000. So the fact that I was able to contract and sell this property, this piece of paper, this, whatever, and make $42,000, I was, that was like this, I'm in forever, I'm going to do this for a long time. So that was my favorite deal, I think, so far. And it's
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, that's great.
That's fantastic.
So, I want to detour a little bit because you said an interesting point before you started taping, is that your dad is also wholesaling and flipping in Iowa. Now, is that a respondent of what you're doing? And is he following your steps, or dads do what dads do and figuring out their own way?
Yeah, no, he's definitely following my steps, and I'm trying to lead him down the path.
Nice.
I think the realization for him when I told him, we made $500,000 last year, he was like, I need in, this is, he's been in sales. I'm obviously half him. So I come from him. I inherited his strengths and weaknesses as well. So I know that he can do this. If I can do it, he can. And because he's been in corporate America for so long, I think that corporate America really drug him down, as it does for a lot of people. You work for the man and you don't control your time, and you don't get the opportunity to show what your strengths are, because you're put in this little box that this is your job, this is your role, this is how much you're getting paid, and this is how much you have to work. That's it. It's not safe. Your job can go. I mean, he lost several jobs over his years that, he thought were safe and secure. But the reality is that is further from the truth. I mean, the most safe and secure you're ever going to find is in entrepreneurship, because it's up to you. When things fail, it's because of you. It's not because of anybody else. It's because of what you did. And so, having him realize that, he actually just got his first deal, and just got his check after awesome. 60 days in the business. That's it. 60 days. And he made 10 grand. So, I mean, I can't be more proud. Yeah.
Congratulations, Dad.
Yep. Wow. What awesome. An amazing give back to your parents. Cause we all want to give back to our parents, but you're able to actually give a business to your father. Mm-hmm. That's mind blowing. I love it.
What are you doing right now to actively improve in your business?
Well, so there's a couple different things. As far as, I just started my own podcast as well. It's called #InvestThis. And, awesome. That is another way for me to give back to my listeners. I'm a big product of listening to podcasts, and I read a lot of books and listen to a lot of books on tape. Everywhere I go, I'm listening to something. And so if I can, very similar to this interaction, if I can provide people with an avenue to learn while they're in a car ride for, a short 25 or 30-minute podcast episode, I'm giving back, and so that's why I started that. Bringing people on board and just making sure that I utilize the people that I have. So utilizing Matt, utilizing the assistant as much as possible to continue to grow, I think is huge. And then I want to get back into apartment syndication. We're actually marketing right now for some apartments here in Phoenix. 10 to 100 units. So it's kind of a vast range, but we're looking for properties that are 85% in economic occupancy that have value add opportunities. And I have some investors on board, and it's no different than what I'm doing now. It's just a different product, right?
Let's talk about what you said there, because you said 85% economic occupancy.
Correct.
So talk to that, and how does that differ than just 85% occupied?
So economic occupancy, which is a very big distinction, because if they're not, that means that they're paying their rent. If they're not paying their rent, it can be occupied, but it's not money coming in the door, right? So that is, I don't care if they're 85% occupied, but only 50% are paying, then it doesn't do me any good, right? So that's what I want to see. I want to see the 85% of the people that are occupied in that property are paying their rent, at least.
And why are you choosing 85, not 90, not 80?
One of my coaches and mentors, Joe Fairless. You may or may not know Joe Fairless.
Yes, you know Joe.
Yeah.
Yep. So this was like 3 years ago, and actually based on your question before, asking what some of my coaches and mentors are, he's one of them. And so that was in a podcast episode or recording, something I saw on YouTube of his probably a year and a half ago or 2 years ago with Bigger Pockets. He basically said that, and I was like, duh, that makes so much sense. Yeah. And so that's an important key distinction I think people need to understand about when if you're looking for apartments, you need to make sure it's economic occupancy and not just occupancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very important, especially if you see a seller selling, and if you look at his rent roll and he's just pushed a lot of people into the apartments right before he's about to sell or list it. Be careful, because you're noting that he's or she is not properly vetting their tenants and just trying to get the occupancy up to really help on the sale. So important note out there for sure. But yeah, good point. Thank you for that.
Yep.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge you're facing getting into the multifamily aspect of real estate?
Psychological really is what it is. And I think that's the reality for most everybody out there. It doesn't matter whether you're just getting started or whether you're trying to take it to the next level. It's not the how-to, because there's more literature. There's more, with the internet today, you can learn anything you want to learn about anything if you go to Google, and it'll tell you step-by-step how to do it. But if you're not psychologically there, and you can't psychologically get out of your own head and get away from whatever mind blocks you have, you're not going to get there.
What's some of the hurdles you're dealing with right now
what are your limiting beliefs?
Because a lot of people, I'm sure, have the same ones.
Well, it's really just doing it. So now we're marketing for it, and actively right now reaching out to all the brokers in town, letting them know what product I'm looking for. Cool. I have some capital that is behind me now, so that when we find the product, we're ready to go. It's just going through the motion. I think that for the longest time, it's been so much time has been emphasized on my single family business that I haven't we all have the 168 hours in a week, right? We all have the same 365 days a year, but you can only have that much time. And so if I spend 10 or 12 hours a day on my single family business, that doesn't leave me much time to focus on the multifamily. And so, once again, this is what kind of bringing more people on to take some more off my plate, so I can focus more on the multifamily will do. And that's where I'm going.
That's great.
Fantastic. That was such great advice for because we know a lot of fix and flippers, wholesalers that are trying to get into the multifamily arena, and they either can't get over their mindset or they can't make the time. But here you're scaling up your flipping business, getting into the multifamily arena. It's all golden.
Yeah, I love it. And so if you look right now, if you were to talk to a new real estate investor who is you basically a few years ago, what would be an actionable step to tell them to just get started today?
So first and foremost, take action. That is the number one thing that most people fail to do when they're getting started, is you must take action. Do not think that you're going to know everything before you take action, because that's how you learn. Is you take action, you make mistakes, and then you take a different route. You learn from your mistake and you keep going. So many people give up. That's the other thing. One of the things that always sticks in my mind is that if you never give up, you never fail. The minute that you throw in the towel, then you fail. But as long as you keep getting back up and you keep charging at it, and you try something that didn't work before, you're going to succeed over time. And so many people, when things don't go quite the way that they thought they were going to, or they flip a deal and they don't maybe make as much money, or maybe they lose money, whatever it may be, they say, oh, this doesn't work, or there's no deals in this market here in Phoenix. That's so popular. They're like, oh, there's no deals here. Inventory's low. There's no deals here. Well, I'm finding deals every day. So I don't know what I got that's so special, but it's just that I don't give up. I don't care when marketing goes out and things, I don't get the response rate, or I don't get the deals that month that I thought I was going to, then I up the marketing the next month because I know that it's going to come back full circle. I know that it just does not matter what happens. I will never give up. And it's kind of cliche or whatever you want to call it, but, I'll die before I stop what I'm doing. I will never work for somebody and be an employee ever in my life again. Like I will succeed at this, or I will die trying. And I think that's the mindset you have to have, or else, you probably aren't fit for this job or for this business.
Oh, that's great.
Those are great words of wisdom. And that was going to be one of my next questions. What are words that you live by?
That certainly is it. Just don't give up. Don't quit. Have faith in yourself, invest in yourself. If anybody can do it, you can. And never let anybody else tell you that you can't, because the people that try to tell you that you can't do something are the ones that have inner problems with themselves. And, I would say it is important to surround yourself with the right people and to invest in yourself, meaning go out and spend money on a good coach, find somebody that has seen success or is successful in whatever realm or whatever you want to be in, and hire them, pay them, tell them, say, hey, I want to be like you. So what do I need to do to make that happen? And if you do that, you will find success. It's almost inevitable. Of course you got to put the work in, but that's the fun part.
That's great. Do you have a morning routine?
Oh yeah. Very, very routine, And it's something I think that, it's a high performance routine, for people that are high performers, you have to have that, and happy to share that. So I wake up every day at 4:50 on the dot. And from 4:50 until 6, I get up, drink water, like right away. I drink 8 ounces of water, whatever, and then meditate in the morning, get myself pumped up and ready for the gym. 6 o'clock, the gym, 6 to 7. I'm a CrossFitter. So those are out there that whatever think about CrossFit, it is awesome. But from 6 to 7, I'm in CrossFit. When I get back, I always do 20 minutes of reading. So I'm always reading something. And I think that, not only do you want to move your body, but you want to move your mind first thing in the morning and get yourself psyched up and ready to go for that day. So spend 20 minutes.
Reading now?
So I'm reading a couple of different books right now. Actually, it's called A New Earth. There's an individual named Eckhart Tolle. It's not a spiritual reading at all, but it's awakening to. Do you know the voice in your head that is always talking, and it is always rambling, and it always says something no matter what? Even if you try to be quiet and you sit there in silence, your mind is moving. Oh, yeah. Meditation and kind of awakening yourself to realizing that voice in your head is not you talking. That is your ego talking. Basically, I'm training my mind to be able to sit in the background and watch everything around it happen without being judgmental, without being, without really just watching. And it's really empowering. It's very hard to explain because for the general person that maybe doesn't meditate, this is like, what are you talking about, man? But it's been a game changer for me, not only to be able to deal with anything that happens throughout the day. When a deal goes bad or something doesn't work the way you thought it was going to be able to cope with that and be able to keep moving forward and not quit, not let it affect you, because you understand that this is just the world working, and this is just how things are going to go. And tomorrow, the deal fell through today, but tomorrow I'm going to pick up 2 new ones. Or, as long as I don't quit, things will work out. And I don't think that, I think that there's people the world is changing. It's becoming an awakened society, and the people that are at the top will all attest to it.
That's great. Well,
what a great mindset.
That was incredible. Yeah. So at that point, I think we'd love to just see how is the best way for others to connect with you. Maybe they're looking to get on your buyers list. They want to hear a little bit more about your story, or just reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to hbsbholdings.com. There's a contact us page on all the social medias, of course, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere you can reach me. And, send me an email if you'd like. It's scott.bauer@hbsbholdings.com. Happy to, help out in any way I can with anybody out there.
Incredible.
Well, thank you so very much, Scott, for being on our show. This has been enlightening on so many different levels, and we'd love to have you over again, especially when you get your first multifamily property.
Yeah, we'd love to dissect that and see where that lands, and it'll be quickly. So probably give you a month running at your pace right
so
here.
I should schedule you now.
Yeah, exactly. So good, man. It's exciting times.
Appreciate it for sure. Definitely. Awesome. And I look forward to staying in touch.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Scott. And thank you to everyone who's been listening today. So this is the Real Estate Investing Foundation with Jason and Pili. Thank you again. So grateful to you for listening. Bye now.
So Fund That Flip. You've heard of him before. We had the founder, Matt Rodak, back in the show of episode 139, and some exciting news happening over at Fund That Flip. They now have funding for your 2, 3, and 4 family rentals. So if you're looking for fast, reliable, easy to work with funding for all of your real estate needs, and now for 2, 3, and 4 family rentals, where can we find them?
You can find them at fundthatflip.com/the REI Foundation. Again, that was fundthatflip.com/the REI Foundation.
Thanks for tuning into the REI Foundation Podcast. Check back next time for more awesome tips and strategies to launch your new you in real estate.